Btooom is an anime produced by Madhouse in the fall season of 2012. It is a 12-episode anime that has both a subbed and a dubbed version. I watched it illegally, so I won't virtue signal by saying that you should stream it on Crunchyroll or Funimation. Whether or not you do that is up to you. Of course, there are spoilers in this review. Why wouldn't there be? If you've ever watched Sword Art Online or any other trapped in a video game type of anime, then you'd probably like this. It features the same elements as Sword Art Online in that the main characters of both shows are losers who spend all of their time playing video games. Both involve the battle for survival aspect, but this is probably the only theme that sets Btooom apart from Sword Art Online in that the aim of the game isn't to survive in general, but to survive through a deathmatch in which you must collect 7 of these green oval chips that are embedded in one of the hands of each of the game's players. The story starts off with the main protagonist, Ryota Sakamoto, who is pretty much your standard definition of a shut-in who is introduced to us through his gameplay of a game called Btooom. Btooom is much like Call of Duty with the exception that there are no guns but rather different types of bombs that the players must use to defeat the enemy team. If you've seen this type of series before, then it's no surprise that the main character is good at the game. In fact, in the first episode it's revealed that him and his team are in the top 10 worldwide. Once the introduction is over, we get a small glimpse of what type of person he is, and to be frank, it's not very great. He treats his parents like shit, although it's later revealed that his mother divorced his father and remarried, and that is the reason why he's so cold towards her, and that he's actually been applying to join a video game company named Tyrannos for up to 2 years. His mother, who is, well, a piece of shit herself, doesn't really get much of an introduction. She's just there to add to who Ryota is as a person. We get a brief exposition of the game, which doesn't really play much of a role other than to reveal to us that a lot of people play the game and that the main character's social life is virtual. I don't really have much to say about the opening. It was fit for purpose. In terms of music, it was just there to portray the tone of the series as serious and eventful, which in some cases it was. After the opening, this is where the main meat of the story begins. The main character wakes up on a tropical island, unaware of how he got there. Not much to say about that. He finally gets out of the jungle, then we get a flashback to what happens prior to him leaving the island. He gets kidnapped by a bunch of guys in black suits. Great, but we soon get a little bit of deathmatch action, which was nice. I enjoyed the scene. It really showed how quick on the uptake Ryota is, since most characters that get transported to a different dimension or into a game don't really figure out what's going on so quickly or so naturally, and it makes him seem like less of the shitbag that he did earlier, but also reveals this weird and unusually naive side to him, which is a running theme throughout the show and gets rather annoying at times, especially for people that watch this critically. It's like you don't really know who the guy is. He's a bit of a dichotomy, and in one of the episodes in which he fights some kid with mental issues, he gets his dick grabbed by his father's child abuse. We learn a little bit about it. In the second episode, we get introduced to the female counterpart, a blonde-haired girl named Himiko, revealed to be a foreigner who at first, like with Asuna from Sword Art Online, is revealed to be this strong and independent character that does whatever to survive, but then ends up becoming a typical damsel in distress that isn't really worth much, other than to make the main character look like a badass or for fan service. I watched this expecting there to be slight differences between it and Sword Art Online, but I can't really find many. The show did try to be a little bit dark with Himiko when she met 3 grown men who don't really stand out as characters except for one who ends up being an antagonist later on, Musashi Miyamoto. Musashi ends up killing one of the members of Himiko's group after they find supplies. This reveals to both Himiko and Akechi, the other group member that doesn't get killed by Musashi, that Musashi is crazy, because in every deathmatch anime we need characters that are overtly crazy. Akechi grabs Himiko by the hand for some reason, takes the supplies that they found and then leaves with them. Musashi finds out that Akechi and Himiko have run away with supplies and decides to chase them down. He manages to catch up, but Akechi uses a corrosive gas type bomb on Musashi and escapes with Himiko. Himiko, unnerved by Akechi, who won't let go of her hand, tries to get away from him, as it is revealed during the episode that Himiko's friends were brutally raped by a group of men, causing Himiko to fear men in a very misandrous way. She pulls out her stun gun and then uses it on him. She manages to get away with the supplies, but later in the episode, Akechi catches up to her, pins her down, and then proceeds to try and rape her. In a short but much needed rape scene, Himiko tries to blow Akechi and herself up using a timer bomb in an attempt to die pure and chaste. Realizing this, Akechi tries to make a break for it, but Himiko manages to kill him with a timer bomb before he can escape. During the rape scene, Akechi makes a comment that interests me. If they don't resist at all, that means it's okay, right? It most likely doesn't, but if they're not resisting, then it's just standard sex, right? Probably. The show introduces several other characters that exist to advance the plot, those being an old man named Tyra who teams up with Ryota in order to escape from the game. The scene in which they met is worth taking note of since it allows us to understand a little bit about Ryota, even though he's dichotomous in that the game that he's playing with the other characters isn't just about how well they can play, but about how well they can deal with others, and that Ryota needs to be more alert in order to succeed. He continues to be naive throughout the show, however. This is a common theme in survival game anime, but one that I'm actually pretty fond of because it encourages thought rather than reaction. Tyra and Ryota make a promise to not participate in the game, which doesn't really hold up on Tyra's end since participating doesn't just mean not killing the other participants but also not collecting the green chips, which Tyra proceeds to do whenever Ryota isn't around. As a character, he really isn't useful and often relies on Ryota to do most of the work for him. He gets injured a lot throughout the series and ends up becoming deadweight by the end when he starts hallucinating and ends up trying to kill both Ryota and Himiko in order to get enough chips to leave the island. I watched this throughout the series. There are several subplots that are set up that don't really get resolved, which is most likely because the animation studio is Madhouse and they're notorious for not finishing their anime. But there were subplots that did get resolved, and those were between Ryota and Himiko, who had apparently gotten married in the video game, which is another parallel between Kirito and Asuna, except for the fact that this time it wasn't as cringeworthy, in which they finally, after dodging the topic, continuously revealed who they were to each other. And another one, which was actually quite tragic, was between two of the show's characters named Masahiro Date and Murasaki Shiki. I didn't really think that I'd feel sorry for a character in the show like with Murasaki, but it really just shows how fucked up people can be. So the creators of the game, Tyrannos, who are revealed to be the ones behind this game, have actually been repeating the deathmatch continuously, which surprised me but really brought the plot together nicely considering the procedure that they used to collect the players. The players were all selected through applications that were sent to the affiliates, in which the affiliates would write down the names of people that they wanted to get rid of. Ryota ended up in this game because his mother wrote him down as the person that she wanted to get rid of, making her seem less like a victim of Ryota's terrible personality and more like a piece of shit. If this isn't clear by now, Date and Murasaki ended up in the game in the same way. But what's brutal about this is that Murasaki, who ended up in the game because she tried to save Date's fuckboy ass, was later betrayed by the person that she tried to save when they ended up succeeding and collecting enough chips to leave the game. In the process of getting enough chips to leave the game, Date blows off Murasaki's arm, leaving her behind on the island, armless, to bleed out and die. Naturally, she survives because the plot won't allow characters to die. Date, because he is such a fuckboy, ends up getting set back, which, as Murasaki comments, would make you feel sorry for him if it wasn't so funny. He ends up teaming with Ryota and Himiko, as well as Tyra, who is now practically crippled from having one of his legs severely injured and from having the fingers of his left hand chopped off by Masashi. A lot happens between the four of them, but to keep it short, Date ends up betraying them, having not learnt his lesson from the previous game, and then ends up getting done in by Ryota, Murasaki and Himiko. However, what was strange about the end of this arc or subplot was that Murasaki, after having been betrayed by Date, ends up saving his life. The show provides a cop-out by having Himiko say something along the lines of, "Only a woman can understand how Murasaki felt," forever leaving me in speculation as to why Murasaki would save his bitch ass. You could argue that it's love, but that's still an unsatisfactory explanation, since any crazy action can be attributed to love. Overall, the show was typical. Not much stood out to me as great or anything, but if my review of the events of the show didn't give away, then you should know that it entertained me. It was action-packed even though I didn't really mention much of the action. It was intense but didn't really faze me all that much. I mean, I spent about 4 hours in front of my computer watching it. The show was really subtle with this, but if you didn't catch on to this while watching the show, the names Date, Oda, and Akechi are a reference to historical figures from the Sengoku period of Japan, which is essentially useless information. Another thing that the show tried to go into but failed to really elaborate on was the concept of simulated killing, which asks whether killing people in fictional settings can be perceived as immoral or not. Anyway, it's deserving of a 6 out of 10. The show doesn't stand out all that much, but it's worth watching if you want something to be entertained by. And with that, this has been Monotone Anime Reviews. Thanks for watching.